The music started. Soft piano notes, each one trembling through the air like fragile glass. I could feel my chest rising and falling too fast beneath the lace of my wedding dress. My palms were damp, clutching the bouquet tighter than I should have. My makeup artist had begged me not to cry before the ceremony, but I wasn't crying. My body was shaking for a reason I didn't yet understand. Because the aisle beside me was empty. The guests murmured in confusion, shifting in their chairs. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Cameras hung awkwardly at their sides. I could hear someone's nervous laugh in the second row, a stifled cough in the back, and still no one stood next to me. My father was supposed to walk me down that aisle. He promised. He'd even chosen his suit himself, navy blue with my late mother's favorite silver tie pin. It was supposed to be symbolic, a way to bring her with us today. But now, as the pianist faltered and the officiant looked at me helplessly, my heart began to fracture. My throat burned as I whispered to my maid of honor, "Where is he?" She looked pale. "Emma. He said he's not coming." The words hit harder than any heartbreak I'd ever known. The world blurred at the edges. I thought of all those years when it was just Dad and me. After Mom died, after we barely scraped through her medical bills, after I'd promised him I'd make her proud. I had imagined him by my side at every milestone, graduation, job interview, and now this moment. I turned toward the door of the church, the one I'd entered hours ago as his daughter, believing I still was. He wasn't there. The ceremony stalled. My fiancé Lucas tried to step forward, but I shook my head. The humiliation had already taken root in my chest like a weed. I couldn't breathe past it. Every eye on me felt like a knife, every whisper another wound. Someone whispered, "She must have done something." And someone else answered, "It's because of his wife, isn't it? The stepmom." My stomach twisted. Dad's new wife, Julia, had been in my life for only 2 years. 2 suffocating years filled with subtle digs, cold smiles, and quiet manipulations. She had a daughter, Ava, perfect, beautiful, endlessly adored Ava, who was 2 years younger than me. And since their wedding, it had felt like I'd been erased. Julia never yelled or insulted me outright. No, she poisoned slowly. Little comments at family dinners, whispered suggestions to Dad when I wasn't listening, jokes that made him question me. And now, as I stood there in front of 100 people, my father had chosen her side. I didn't know it yet, but that single moment, the empty aisle, wasn't just humiliation. It was betrayal carved into my soul. The reception was canceled. People left quietly, pretending not to look at me. My fiancé's family offered their sympathy, but even they couldn't hide their discomfort. By nightfall, the elegant venue was empty. Only a few candles flickered across the tables that had been set for laughter, toasts, and dancing. Lucas sat beside me, his jacket draped around my shoulders. "Emma, he'll regret it. Maybe something happened." "No," I said, my voice breaking. He refused. Julia told him not to. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Why would she do that? What could possibly?" "She thinks I'm stealing her daughter's place," I said bitterly. "That I'm taking what belongs to Ava. Her dad's love, the family name, attention, affection. Everything." Lucas looked at me like he didn't believe it. But I'd seen it over and over again. 2 months before the wedding, I had gone to visit Dad to finalize guest lists. I brought a binder full of notes and budget details, something Mom would have loved. When I walked in, Julia and Ava were sitting on the couch, flipping through bridal magazines. "Oh, Emma," Julia had said sweetly, "you didn't tell us you were coming. We were just helping Ava with her college gala theme. So exciting, isn't it?" I smiled politely. "That's great. I just need to talk to Dad for a few minutes." But when I turned, I saw him in the kitchen, watching us with a strange expression, guarded, hesitant. Julia's tone changed immediately, quieter but sharp. "You know, Emma, I was just saying to Ava how strange it must feel for you, getting married before her. Almost like stealing her spotlight." Ava blushed, pretending to laugh it off. "Mom, stop," she said softly, but I caught the glint in her eyes. She enjoyed it. I looked at Dad, expecting him to say something, to remind Julia that I was his daughter, that my wedding wasn't a competition. But instead he just sighed and walked away. That was the first time I felt it, the space growing between us. Now, sitting in that darkened venue with Lucas beside me, I finally let the tears fall. He held me gently, whispering, "You don't need him to walk you down anything. You're already strong enough to walk through hell and back." But the little girl in me, Daddy's girl, didn't believe him. Not yet. Because deep down I still needed to know why. Why he'd left me alone in that church. Why Julia's voice suddenly mattered more than mine. And why a father who once swore he'd never let anyone hurt me had just done exactly that. That night when I finally got home, I saw his car parked outside my apartment building. My heart lurched. I ran to the window, desperate for an explanation, for some kind of remorse. He was sitting in the driver's seat, motionless, staring at something in his lap. My phone buzzed a second later. "Dad, you need to understand, Emma. It's not what you think." My hands trembled. I typed back quickly. "Me. Then what is it? Why didn't you come?" He didn't reply. Instead, I watched him start the engine and drive away, the red taillights disappearing into the night. And though I didn't know it yet, that text was only the beginning of what Julia had done. Because beneath her sweet smile and calm words, there was a plan. A slow, calculated destruction of everything that made me my father's daughter. And soon I would uncover just how far she had gone to make me disappear. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. The sunlight spilled weakly through the curtains, painting the room in gray streaks. For a moment I didn't remember where I was. The empty reception hall still clung to my dreams like a haunting echo. The missed calls flashed on the screen, Dad for. And one unread message. "Dad, we need to talk. Please come by the house. Just you." I stared at it for a long time, feeling my pulse race. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or drive straight to him and demand an explanation. The pain from yesterday still clung to me like dried blood. But a small part of me, the foolish, hopeful part, whispered maybe he realized what he's done. I didn't tell Lucas. He'd been through enough, watching my humiliation unravel in public. I just left a note on the counter. "Going to talk to Dad. Don't worry." By the time I pulled up to the house, my stomach felt hollow. The place looked different, colder. Julia's touch was everywhere now. Manicured hedges, pastel-painted shutters, her flower arrangements in every window. The home that once smelled of coffee and old books now smelled of something sterile and staged. Dad opened the door before I could knock. His face was pale, eyes red like he hadn't slept. "Emma," he said softly, "thank you for coming." I stepped inside. My voice was steady but my hands trembled. "Why didn't you walk me down the aisle?" He looked away. "I wanted to, you have to believe that." "But Julia, He trailed off like he couldn't find the right words. "She what?" I snapped. "She made you choose?" "She told me something, Emma. Something I had to consider." I laughed, sharp, bitter, broken. What could she possibly have said that justified humiliating your own daughter in front of everyone I love? His silence was worse than any answer. Then softly he said, "She told me you said you wished Ava didn't exist." My jaw dropped. "What?" He swallowed hard. "She said she overheard you tell your friend that Ava was just a jealous brat trying to replace your mother, and that you couldn't wait to take everything from her." I felt my knees weaken. "That's a lie. I never said anything like that." "I want to believe you," he whispered. "But Julia said she has a recording." The world tilted. "A recording?" He nodded slowly, shame flickering in his eyes. "I didn't want to listen. But she played it for me last night." "Then play it for me," I demanded. He hesitated, glancing toward the kitchen, and that's when I saw her. Julia stood by the doorway, dressed immaculately as always, her auburn hair tied back, a mug of tea in her hands and a look of gentle concern etched onto her face. "Oh, Emma," she said, sighing as if it broke her heart. "I was hoping we could talk about this calmly. The last thing any of us needs is more drama." "Drama?" I spat. "You made him believe I hate his wife's daughter. You made him abandon me at my own wedding." Her expression didn't waver. "I didn't make him do anything. I just told him the truth." "You lied." She smiled faintly, tilting her head. "People hear what they want to hear, dear. Sometimes a truth can sound like a lie if you're not ready to face it." I took a step forward, rage and disbelief flooding my veins. "Where's this recording?" Julia looked at Dad. "Do you really think playing it will make anything better? She'll just deny it. and it will drive her further away. He hesitated again. And in that hesitation I saw the full weight of her control. It wasn't love that tied him to her. It was guilt. Manipulated, quiet, suffocating guilt. Julia turned to me, her tone soft, almost maternal. You've had such a hard time letting go of your mother. I understand, truly I do. But your father deserves happiness too. Ava and I are his family now, and you need to learn to share him. Share him. My voice cracked. You've stolen him. Careful, she murmured, smiling without warmth. That kind of talk sounds exactly like the recording. Something inside me snapped. I took one step toward her, but Dad's voice rose suddenly. Enough. The sound echoed through the hallway, sharp and final. He rubbed his temples. I can't keep doing this. Julia's trying to keep peace in this house, and you keep accusing her. I stared at him, speechless. You really think I'm the problem? His silence said it all. Julia sighed, touching his arm gently. It's okay, darling. She's just emotional. Let her cool off. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to remind him who raised me, who taught me to tie my shoes, who promised to walk me down every path in life. But instead I walked out. I didn't remember the drive home. Just the cold, endless replay of her words. A truth can sound like a lie if you're not ready to face it. That night, Lucas came over, finding me curled on the couch. My makeup was smeared, my phone face down on the carpet. He crouched beside me. What happened? I told him everything. The recording, Julia's lies, Dad's disbelief. He didn't say much, just held me until I stopped shaking. Finally, he asked quietly, what if the recording's fake? I looked at him. Fake. AI voice cloning editing. It's not hard to fake voices now. If she wanted to turn him against you, that would be the easiest way. The thought struck me like lightning. Of course, Julia was meticulous. She planned everything down to the tone of her sighs. Of course she'd create something to destroy me completely. A new fire lit inside me. Then I'll prove it. How? I wiped my face. If she's faking recordings, she's hiding something worse. I'll find it. Over the next few days I started watching Julia's patterns, visiting her social media, the places she went, the people she met. She had a way of weaving herself into people's lives, subtly turning them against anyone who didn't serve her narrative. But one thing stood out. Every Tuesday afternoon, she visited a small audio restoration studio on the edge of town, Sound Perfect Productions. The same place she claimed to go for podcast editing for Ava's college project. Something told me this wasn't about any podcast. On the third Tuesday I followed her. I parked 2 blocks away, heart pounding, and watched through the window as she walked inside carrying a flash drive. Half an hour later she came out smiling. I waited until she was gone before entering. The front room smelled of dust and old speakers. A man in his 50s looked up from behind the counter. Can I help you? Yes, I said, forcing a smile. My stepmother was just here. Julia Carrington. She said you were editing something for her, but she left her drive here. I'm her stepdaughter. He frowned, glancing at the counter. Oh, Julia. Yeah, she's a regular. Brings in old voice clips to clean up. Says they're for family audio diaries. Sweet lady. I could taste the bitterness. Do you happen to have a copy of what she brought today? I think she might have given you the wrong file. He hesitated. I'm not supposed to share client files. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. Please. It's about my wedding. Something in my eyes must have convinced him because he sighed, opened a drawer, and pulled out a USB stick. This is the one she just dropped off. Said it was an update to the daughter file. My blood turned cold. The daughter file? Yeah. Something about family reconciliation. You'll see. I thanked him, took the drive, and left before my legs could give out. In the car I plugged it into my laptop. There were 3 audio files. One labeled M_confession file MP3. I pressed play. My voice filled the speakers, shaking, emotional, familiar. I just wish Ava didn't exist. She's taken everything from me. I'll make sure Dad regrets ever meeting Julia. The sound sent a chill straight down my spine. It was my voice. But I had never said those words. Never. And yet it was flawless. I sat in the car, heart racing, staring at the waveform on the screen. The voice was identical, tone, cadence, every detail. but something about the rhythm was slightly off. There were pauses where I'd never make them, unnatural hesitations. Lucas was right. It was fake. But proving it would be another war entirely. Still, I wasn't the same girl who stood crying at the altar anymore. Julia wanted to destroy me in silence. I was about to drag her into the light. I didn't sleep that night. The fake recording played in my head over and over again, like a haunting echo that wouldn't stop. Hearing my own voice saying words I'd never spoken made something inside me fracture. Not from pain this time, but from determination. Julia had crafted a lie so perfect, even sound believed it. And my father, the man who once told me he'd never doubt me, had chosen to believe a stranger's manipulation instead of his own blood. But I wasn't going to let her win. I opened my laptop, pulled up the audio file, and began researching every possible way to analyze it. Lucas helped from across the room, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Voice cloning leaves digital fingerprints, he said quietly. If we can find an expert, they can prove it's fabricated. I nodded. I just need someone credible. Someone Dad can't dismiss. After hours of searching, we found her. Dr. Isla Morton, a forensic audio specialist who had testified in corporate fraud cases. She lived 2 towns away. By morning, I was sitting in her office, clutching a USB drive like it was the only thing keeping me alive. She listened carefully, her gray eyes calm but sharp. After I finished explaining, she inserted the drive into her computer and loaded the file. Within seconds, her brows furrowed. What? I asked, my voice shaking. There's inconsistency in the waveform. The frequency balance shifts mid-sentence. It's been spliced. Whoever did this used AI modulation to match your tone. She looked at me. This is synthetic. I exhaled sharply, a tremor of relief and anger escaping together. Can you prove it? She nodded. I can extract the metadata. It'll show the audio wasn't recorded naturally. But you should know. People who fake evidence like this don't stop at one lie. I swallowed hard. You mean there might be more? She didn't answer, but her expression said everything. That evening I sat in my car outside Dad's house again. The sunset had turned the sky into shades of dying fire. I could see silhouettes moving through the curtains, Julia's delicate gestures, Ava's laughter, Dad's shadow shifting between them. My childhood home had turned into a stranger's cage. I called him. He picked up after a few rings. Emma. I have proof, I said. That recording, it's fake. A forensic expert confirmed it. He sighed long and tired. Emma, you don't have to keep doing this. Julia doesn't lie. She does, I cut in. And I can prove it. Let me come in. Let me show you. Silence stretched. I could hear faint laughter behind him, Julia's voice. Finally he said, fine. 10 minutes. When he opened the door, his expression was unreadable. Julia stood behind him, her hand resting lightly on his arm, her eyes soft with concern. Emma, she said gently, are you sure this is a good time? Your father's had such a long day. I ignored her and set my laptop on the coffee table. Just watch. Dr. Morton's analysis video began playing. Graphs, timestamps, highlighted spectral shifts. Her voice narrated clearly. This file was artificially generated. Segments of different audio clips have been digitally stitched and modulated. When it ended, I looked at him. Do you still think I said it? For a moment, I saw doubt flicker in his eyes. His lips parted slightly. But before he could speak, Julia stepped closer. That doesn't mean she didn't say something like it, dear. Maybe she's just trying to rewrite the story. People can manipulate experts too. I turned on her, trembling. You're unbelievable. She smiled faintly. I'm realistic. Dad rubbed his forehead. Please, both of you. No, I said, voice breaking. I'm done being quiet. Julia, I know what you've done. You've been planting lies for 2 years. You turned my father against me because you can't stand that he loved someone before you. Her eyes flashed, the first genuine emotion I'd seen. Don't flatter yourself. You've been clinging to him like a child. It's unhealthy. Unhealthy. I laughed bitterly. You made him choose between his daughter and your fantasy of control. Dad's voice rose. Stop it. You're tearing this family apart. I looked at him, my chest tightening. No, Dad. She already did that. Julia reached for his hand again, and he let her. That tiny movement, that act of loyalty, shattered something irreparable inside me. I gathered my things, holding back tears. "You'll see the truth eventually," I said quietly. "When you do, I hope it hurts." I didn't hear from him for a week. Then one morning Lucas showed me a social media post. A photo of Ava, wearing my wedding dress. Caption: "A beautiful shoot with my new stepsister's designer gown. So grateful to Julia for the opportunity." My blood froze. The background of the photo was unmistakable. Dad's garden. My dress. My veil. They had turned my destroyed wedding into their plaything. That was the moment the grief burned away, replaced by something colder and sharper. If Julia wanted war, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I went back to Dr. Morton and asked her to dig deeper into the metadata. She found fragments of another name embedded in the file's data trail. Carrington_Audio_Mix 2. Julia's maiden name was Carrington. But that wasn't the shocking part. The timestamp showed it was created 4 months before my wedding, long before the supposed incident Julia claimed to overhear. Meaning the entire setup had been planned in advance. Every manipulation, every misunderstanding, every tear Julia shed was rehearsed. Called Dad again. He didn't answer. But that night around midnight, my phone buzzed with an anonymous text. Unknown number. "You should stop digging, Emma. Some truths hurt worse than lies." I stared at the message, my breath catching. The profile picture was blank, but the style, the perfect punctuation, the phrasing, it was her. Julia. Lucas insisted I stay at his apartment after that. "She's unhinged, Emma. You're not safe around her." But I couldn't stay still. I needed to know how deep this went. So one Friday evening, I went back to Dad's house while they were out at Ava's piano recital. I still had a spare key, one Julia didn't know existed. The house was immaculate as always. But the deeper I walked, the colder it felt. In Julia's office, I found a locked drawer. I hesitated, then used a small flathead screwdriver from the garage to pry it open. Inside were neatly labeled folders: M_behavior, financials, audio logs, Ava therapy notes. My hands trembled as I flipped through. The M_behavior file was filled with printed emails, my emails. Personal ones between me and Dad, selectively edited, rewritten. Dozens of fabricated exchanges. She'd created an entire alternate version of me. But at the bottom of the drawer, taped beneath the folders, was something else. A small black external hard drive. I plugged it into my laptop. There were videos, hidden camera clips, conversations between Julia and Dad, and one file titled Planunderschreuting MP4. When I opened it, my heart stopped. It was Julia sitting in that same office speaking directly to the camera. "Ava will wear her dress eventually. Emma was never meant to walk down that aisle. She needs to learn her place. Once the recording convinces Mark, she'll have no one left to defend her. And then, Ava will finally have the life she deserves." My hand flew to my mouth. She had orchestrated everything, from the wedding sabotage to the emotional torture. And my father had been her puppet. I backed away from the desk, shaking. For a second, I considered calling the police. But then I thought of Dad, broken, manipulated, blind. He deserved to see the truth with his own eyes. So I copied the video onto a flash drive, pocketed it, and left quietly. The night air hit me like a baptism. Cold, sharp, and cleansing. For the first time in months, I wasn't the broken daughter anymore. I was the witness. The reckoning had finally begun. I drove to my father's house the next morning with the flash drive clutched tight in my hand. The steering wheel was slick beneath my palms, my heart hammering like it wanted out of my chest. I didn't know if I was ready for this confrontation, but I knew one thing. It was time. No more silence. No more letting Julia write my story. When I arrived, the driveway was empty except for Dad's car. I rang the doorbell. He opened the door slowly, surprise flickering across his tired face. "Emma," he said warily, "what are you doing here?" I held up the drive. "You need to see something. Please, just once, no interruptions, no excuses. Just watch." He hesitated but stepped aside. The air inside smelled faintly of cinnamon and lavender, Julia's perfume. Even when she wasn't around, her presence lingered. We sat in the living room. The television glowed blue as I connected the drive and opened the file. The video began to play. Julia sat in her office, her expression calm and deliberate. Her voice, smooth and cold, filled the room. Ava will wear her dress eventually. Emma was never meant to walk down that aisle. She needs to learn her place. Once the recording convinces Mark, she'll have no one left to defend her. And then, Ava will finally have the life she deserves. Dad's breath caught. He froze completely, his hands gripping the armrests. The video continued. He's too easy to guide. A few tears, a few words about how I only want peace, and he folds. It's almost sad, really. Silence. Only the faint hum of the television. Then slowly my father's face crumbled. His lips trembled. His eyes, those once warm, steady eyes, filled with something I'd never seen in him before, horror. "Oh my God," he whispered. I let the video play to the end. There was no need for me to say anything. Her words did all the talking. When the screen went black, I turned toward him. "Now do you see?" He buried his face in his hands. "What have I done?" I didn't move. I couldn't. Every cell in my body screamed with vindication and heartbreak all at once. "You believed her," I said softly. "You chose her lies over your daughter's truth." He looked up at me, tears streaking his face. "Emma, No," I interrupted. "You don't get to apologize yet." My voice shook. "I stood at that altar waiting for you, Dad." The music started, the doors opened, and everyone looked at me. "And you weren't there. You left me standing alone because of her." He reached out, but I stepped back. "I kept trying to prove my worth to you," I whispered. "I kept believing if I just showed you how much I loved you, you'd remember the kind of man you used to be. But you let her twist you into someone who couldn't even recognize your own child." He wiped his face with trembling hands. "She said she was protecting the family. I thought she was helping." I laughed weakly. "No, she was erasing me. And you let her." For a long moment, the only sound was the clock ticking on the wall. Then suddenly the front door opened. Julia's voice floated in from the hallway. "Mark? What's going on?" When she stepped into the room and saw me, her smile faltered. But only for a second. She quickly composed herself, tilting her head with that same gentle concern she always wore like perfume. "Oh, Emma," she said smoothly. "Still chasing ghosts?" Dad turned toward her, voice low and shaking. "Julia, what is this?" She blinked innocently. "What do you mean?" He pointed at the TV. "That video. Your voice. Your words." Her smile tightened. "That's absurd. Anyone can fake a video these days. You really think I'd say something like that?" He rose from the couch, towering over her. "I know your voice, Julia." She backed up slightly. "She's manipulating you again, Mark. That's what she does. She's always playing the victim." "No," he said, his voice breaking. "You did this." Julia's eyes hardened. The sweetness melted away, replaced by something sharp and venomous. "You were pathetic enough to believe whatever I told you. Don't turn on me now." The words hung in the air like acid. He stared at her in disbelief. "You destroyed my daughter's wedding. You destroyed her trust in me." She gave a small bitter laugh. "Your daughter was never your future, Mark. I was. You just couldn't handle the truth." I took a step forward. "You don't get to talk about truth." Julia turned to me slowly, her expression eerily calm. "You wanted him all to yourself. The perfect daddy's girl, forever adored, forever untouchable. You couldn't handle that someone else could make him happy." My throat tightened. "You manipulated him. You weaponized love. And you weaponized pity," she hissed. "You used your mother's memory like a shield. You think I didn't see how he worshipped you? You needed to be replaced." Dad's voice roared through the room. "Enough." The house fell silent. He was shaking, tears glinting in his eyes. "Julia, get out." She blinked, stunned. "What?" "You heard me," he said, voice breaking. "Get out of my house. Out of my life." Her face twisted, rage replacing elegance. "You'll regret this, Mark. She'll turn on you next." He looked at her, exhausted. "I already turned on myself." She stared at us both for a long moment, trembling with fury, then stormed toward the door. The sound of it slamming echoed through the house like thunder. And then it was quiet again. We stood in that silence for what felt like hours. Dad finally sank into the couch, his shoulders slumped. "I don't know how to fix this," he said weakly. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "You're right," I said softly. "You don't." He nodded, tears spilling freely now. "But I'll spend the rest of my life trying anyway." I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I saw how fragile he'd become. How years of grief and loneliness had made him desperate for comfort, even from the wrong person. I knelt beside him. "I can't forget what you did, Dad. But I don't want to hate you either." He took my hand carefully like he was afraid I'd pull away. "You're still my little girl," he whispered. "Even if I don't deserve to say it." I closed my eyes, tears sliding down my cheeks. "Then prove it. Don't let her win. Help me clear my name." He nodded silently. 2 weeks later, Julia's voice was on every local news station. The video had been submitted to the authorities, along with the fabricated audio files and forged documents I'd found in her drawer. It turned out she had a history, 2 previous marriages, both ending with financial complications. She was a professional manipulator. My father was just her latest mark. Her arrest didn't feel triumphant. It felt quiet, hollow. I watched her being led into a police car one gray morning. She didn't look at me, didn't flinch. She just smiled faintly, like she knew she'd left her mark anyway. And maybe she had. Because even after the truth came out, I couldn't walk past a mirror without remembering that aisle. That empty space beside me. That feeling of being alone when I was supposed to be loved. Some betrayals don't heal. They just scar differently. Months later, Dad tried to rebuild what was left. He came to therapy with me. He showed up. Slowly, awkwardly, painfully. He started to become my father again. We never spoke about Julia again. But sometimes I'd see him staring out the window, lost in thought. Regret has a way of aging people. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he turned to me and said, "I'm proud of you, you know." I smiled faintly. For what? For surviving what I couldn't. I didn't answer. I just squeezed his hand. The next day, I visited the church where my wedding was supposed to be. The candles had long been melted down, the pews empty. But as I stood there, I realized something. The aisle wasn't empty anymore. Because I'd walked it alone and survived. And that, in its own way, was the truest kind of ceremony.